And we are recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Convicted Hearts. I have some very special guests with me tonight, Letty and CJ. I would like to introduce them to all of you. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming. I really feel honored to have you guys as my first guests. Very excited.
Yeah. We're happy to be here.
I'm thankful. Yeah, you guys have an awesome story, each of you individually and together. So I'm hoping, I know that a lot of people will get something out of it actually. So do you mind telling me or telling the guests and me, where you guys are from, where you grew up?
I'm from Prunedale, California, born and raised.
That's what's up. Right? Okay.
I was born and raised in Salinas, California, but spent some time in San Jose and Modesto, but always came back.
That's good. Everybody always comes back, huh?
Yeah.
It always comes back. Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
That's cool. How many siblings do you have, Leslie? Do you have siblings?
Yes, I am the youngest of 8.
Oh, wow, so you have a big family too. Yeah. And CJ, how many siblings?
I have 3 brothers,
Right.
or had 3 brothers.
Yes.
One passed away.
Yeah, my condolences. I recently heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you guys have been together for how long?
Almost 20 years.
I like how you just round up now. You're just like, it's close to 20.
If I go under, she gets so mad. So I just go over 20, 21, hell.
Together, let's see. I don't know. We got together. Yeah, together it's been 2002. So 19 years.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And you guys have had your share of ups and downs and all around, right?
Yeah.
Hasn't everybody? Doesn't everybody?
I know.
Yeah. CJ likes to keep it interesting.
Yeah. Hey, it keeps it exciting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool though. That's a very encouraging, that's part of what I thought was encouraging to a lot of other couples, because I've had some people reach out to me and, not a lot of married couples have done interviews together. And I was like, that would be a cool message for people to hear,
Yeah.
Offer some advice, this and that. I know, CJ, you've had, just speaking on it because that's kind of the genre of this channel. There's people that watch that have done their share of time, incarcerated or dealing with certain issues in life that are, living a better life now or striving towards it. I thought maybe you could tap into that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've done my fair share. I've done like two different prison terms, a couple violations, on 2 different numbers. I started out before I actually met Letty. I did 3 years, 8 months in prison, and then I got out, and then I did a violation in San Quentin with Letty, and then I did another new term with Letty in Salinas Valley, and I don't know. For a second, it seemed like I was in and out. I'd go to jail, and they did like a Prop 36 for drugs and stuff. So I got out, and I was all excited, and I'm all, well, I'm not gonna go back, but I still went back.
You've been
But yeah, I done my fair share. Letty tried to help me like really hard in the beginning. She even went to like AA meetings with me, and even after I would disappear for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, and all this other stuff. But since we've been through that and gone through that after the last time I got out, one of her things was it. I guess it's our form of forgiveness. Is we said we wouldn't bring up old stuff, and she lives by it, and I live by it. That I don't, I not that I can bring up a lot of old stuff on her, but she don't bring up all the dumb stuff I did back in the
Unless
day.
he brings it up first, or I'm using it as an example, but I don't use it like in an argument.
Yeah.
Right, that's right. I like that though. You know what I mean? It's like accountability, but without, rubbing it in someone's face. Like that's
Yeah, just kind of like without judgment or blame. But I mean, that's what it was. I'm not saying it to like demean you or make you feel bad about it, but like those are the facts. Like that's what
Yeah.
went down. But never in an argument, never to like throw it in his face, because we weren't. I think in all of the going back and forth and his drug use, I had people around me that were super honest with me um, about my faults, and not necessarily that like my actions contributed to his drug use, right? Because he made his own choices, but definitely like I think the first time he got out, I was very much like, I need you to do this, this, and this to prove to me that you're changing, right? And he did all those things. And even though he was meeting like my expectations or like what I wanted to see from him, I never gave him credit for it. I just became more controlling and more. And so when he did go back to prison, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy where I was like, why? I knew it was going to happen. That's why it was like that. And I had really good people around me, not necessarily defending CJ's actions, but saying like, it didn't matter what he did. Like you were never giving credit for the good he was doing. So what was his motivation to keep doing it? Like nothing was going better for him. So, so not putting blame on me, but just saying like, take responsibility for the fact that you gave him false hope, that you would trust him, that you would, continue to love him. But then you said all these, I'll love you, but, and that's not fair to him either, So I think that's a blessing. I don't think that's something people realize. Like again, he takes ownership for his drug use, but in our relationship and what was going on there when he was incarcerated, I had to take ownership of my role in, not trusting him and like the relationship stuff. It didn't matter what he did. I wasn't going to trust him again. No matter he left his socks on the floor, it doesn't matter. You're the one that went to jail. Like every argument I won because he messed up one time. Yeah. Well, not one time, but like one event. So, just taking ownership for my own stuff.
Yeah, I think that's super important for not only females, but partners in general to hear that goes both ways, There's some viewers that are, females that have had their partner incarcerated and vice versa. But I hear what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like it's almost a fear of, I know this could happen. And like you said, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah.
I was scared. I didn't want to go through that again. And so in my mind, if I controlled every aspect of his day, of our lives, then he wouldn't go back to using. But the reality is that that's not healthy for a relationship either. And so, yeah.
How was that for you, CJ, being inside, knowing that you had someone standing by you, on the outside? Is it difficult, or is it more of a encouragement? Because I know I've heard different people speak of having to separate themselves from reality.
The last time probably was really, really the hardest, because I left her with my son, 8 months old, and her by herself. And, before I was like, hey, send me a package, do this for me, do that for me. But like the last time I don't think she was going to send me nothing, but I didn't ask her for nothing. I was lucky enough to get where I could get a job to make my own money, basically. And I wrote with indigent envelopes, the welfare process inside the prison. And I didn't try and ask her for nothing the last time, because it was the hardest. Like I tried not to think about it all on the outside, but in a way it's hard watching your kid grow up the first couple of years, the first year and everything. And while you're sitting in prison through pictures, his first birthday, his first Easter, that was one of the, you know, the worst. And I think as a, trying to be a dad and the childhood I grew up, I'm not going to say my dad wasn't a good dad. He provided and everything, but their thing was alcohol and parties and hanging out all the time. So, we ran amok through Prunedale growing up. It was the 80s, and parents didn't keep a tight rein on their kids very much, but they did what they did and we did what we did. But I didn't want to be like that with my kids. I wanted to be there all the time. I wanted to be at their games. I wanted to be at I wanted to be at his first birthday. But being inside, I was all, yeah, I can't think about it, but at the same time, I can't bother them. So I tried not to bother the life flow going on while I was inside. And I didn't ask for nothing. Like I said, I just pretend like I'm not there until I get out of there. And then hopefully I can be the dad that I'm supposed to be when I get out.
Right, right. And you know what? That's very rare. A lot of people I know are on a different end of things and have their loved ones asking for a lot.
Yeah.
I can't judge it because I haven't been there, but I've had I have relatives that have. So
My brother hit me up and asked him to send him a flat screen TV and all kinds of stuff, and I'm all like, bro. I mean I've dealt with homeboys and everything that are locked up, but it's hard to put. We don't realize it, but like the first couple times I was all like, yeah, send me a package, send me this. I was getting my quarterly packages and everything, but I don't know, something hit me this last time and I was just like, man, I just got to deal with my own crap and not put it on my family. And I was making money in there. Even the first time I was making a bunch of money, but I kept asking for quarterly packages because I ended up in a fire camp the first time up in Susanville, and I did a lot of fires while I was at camp and stuff, and it was just like, and then even now I think about it. Then I was bugging my grandma of all people for packages, and I'm all, you know if they got it like that, they got it like that. But some people just, man, we don't realize that we're putting a lot of strain on our family to want to send us, a couple soups, because it does. Whenever they can't put soups on their own table,
yeah, I've seen it.
it's rough.
Yeah. How was that for you, Letty, as far as, with the little one at home,
The first time he went in when we were together, we didn't have Bobby. And even then he was like, you don't need to send me anything, but it was just me. I moved in with his grandparents. And so his Aunt Sherry was always like, oh, you can send him packages. And I think that's from the opposite end of that. I think they always wanted to let them. I think that was their only way they knew how to show love. Grandma would write to him and would send him packages. And so the first time he went in before we had Bobby, we sent him maybe a couple of packages, but he didn't ask for anything. But it was just like Aunt Sherry was like, oh, we can do this. And I was like, okay. But after when he went in, when we had Bobby, we went through a lot of like back and forth as far as whether or not I was actually going to take Bobby to go see him in prison, especially because he was at Salinas Valley. So when he was at San Quentin, I only went once or twice because of the drive, and then other than when I picked him up from prison. But when he was at Salinas Valley, I was like, oh, like I could go every weekend. And I'm kind of grateful that like my sister was like, no, like I'm not watching your son every weekend so you can go see him. Like you have a kid here. I was working while he was locked up. I went back to school. So I was taking a Saturday class. So, now I look back and I'm like, yeah, like I should have been with my son. And that was one of the things that CJ and I talked about was you had every opportunity in the world to be a father while you were out. I'm not. you can see pictures of your son, you can watch him grow in pictures, but I'm not going to bring him to this establishment. And I know that there's a lot of different like schools of thought, but the first time he got arrested, I think it was just a huge adjustment for me because it was the hardest thing in the world. And I remember saying this to him when he was in county, where I said, like, I fell in love with everything that I was taught was wrong. Like, I wasn't, I never did drugs other than smoking pot when I turned 18. Like, I tried it once and hated it, and like never again. I was never like a huge drinker. I smoked cigarettes like for a long time, but like, and I was a social drinker, so like I would drink and have a cigarette when I was out, but like never drunk and drive. Like, I didn't do anything. And so to basically, yeah, marry basically the epitome of everything I was told to stay away from was hard, a hard pill to swallow. And I loved him, and I saw so much good in him. And so when we had Bobby and he went back to prison, it was a tough pill to swallow. And I had told him after the first time when he was in San Quentin that I would never do this again.
Right.
You go back in, like, I'm done. But then we had Bobby, and I think for me that was the hardest thing. Was I felt, and I think for me it was a lot of prayer and just a lot of like, I don't feel right about leaving, and unless God gives me peace about leaving this man, like, I'm not there yet. I need to work through those issues because God's not telling me to go, and so I'm going to stay and figure this out. But we did have a hard time kind of deciding, and we went back and forth a little bit when he was at Salinas Valley, where he wanted to see his son. And then I think after one of our visitations, there happened to be another inmate there, and his family was there. And I guess I had left before they did, and CJ watched the other inmate have to say goodbye to his toddler. And after that, I got a letter in the mail from him saying, you don't have to bring him. Like, I'm not going to fight you on it anymore. He's like, because I don't know that I'll be able to say goodbye. And I always remember that, because that's where we kind of finally started seeing eye to eye during that incarceration, where he was like, I don't know that I'd be able to do that. Like, say goodbye to my son again. And yeah, like, that was rough. So he saw, I mean, first Halloween, first Thanksgiving, first Christmas, first New Year's, first Valentine's Day, first birthday, first Easter, up until first 4th of July. All of those firsts were missed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's different. Like that story you mentioned, watching the other, inmate have to say goodbye. I took my kids once to see my brother, and my oldest daughter, she actually got physically ill. And I think it was just the stress of seeing where we were, and we were leaving,
Yeah.
And she was old enough to know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's got to be a hard decision, for families. I really respect the way you guys handled it.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't think that there is a right way. Like, everybody, each family is different, each family. And we really struggled with making that decision. Cause I knew that was, I felt like I was being harsh. I felt like every other person in here is bringing their kids to see their dads or their uncles or whoever. And I felt like a jerk, and that was rough. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know that he was little, so I don't know that he would remember. But I think, from CJ's perspective, once he was like, that, for as an adult, that gut-wrenching feeling of having to say goodbye to your child, he's like, I don't think that this time is going to be harder on me if I have to do that. And so, we made the decision that, well, he agreed finally with my decision to not take him and stop fighting about it. But
yeah, so that was pretty eye-opening for you in that moment, huh, CJ?
Well, I mean that too. There's a lot of things. There's like a code that there's certain things that aren't supposed to happen in visiting because family is there and everything. But at the same time, you're in prison. and you never know what's gonna happen while you're in there. So that was another thing, always on my mind. Man, I don't want my kids in here if something goes down. You know,
Yeah. I've seen a few things in the visiting room, just visiting,
yeah.
so I can
Oh,
imagine.
I've seen a lot of things, and they're just, like I said, there's supposed to be a code that there's just a lot of stuff that don't happen but happens. I've seen old ladies go into prison right there from the visiting room, because they're smuggling drugs in. I mean, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of bad things that can happen even in visiting.
Is there any specific incident that sticks out that you can speak on that was shocking to you?
Well, I've seen dude do his old lady whenever I was in Susanville at a visit one time, sitting on
That
his
wasn't with
lap.
me. That
That
wasn't with me.
wasn't with Letty, that was with somebody else. But yeah. And
You
there
can
was
say her
kids in
name.
the room, and they ain't supposed to,
Yeah.
yeah.
When we were there, it was all funny. I think some of our funniest like conversations were probably when he was there. Every time I would go and he would tell me which guards were shower sharks, and then he had to explain to me what shower sharks were.
Yes, you get the lingo down, huh?
Yeah, there is that. And then my favorite was there was a couple there, and like I'm a bigger girl and the girl is bigger, and so I get
Oh,
that
they
they're
were
like in a
walking
cell,
laps.
they only get out so much. And this guy, every time we went, like every weekend I was there, that girl was there, and apparently she went like every weekend, but they would walk the whole time, and she'd be like in flip-flops. She was like as big as me, if not bigger. And I was like, and CJ would be like, do you want to walk? No, I did not come here to get walked like a dog. Like, we will sit here and talk and hang out.
Right.
That girl was like huffing and puffing. Like, I felt horrible for her. And he's like a stick. And he's like excited because he gets to like do laps around the freaking visiting room. And I was like, no, I didn't come here to get tortured.
Right. Yes. And most of the prisons are where it's super hot too. So
they don't open the windows for you. It's not a comfortable environment. Yes.
Right.
He would walk her. And I was like, that girl looked miserable. And I was like, don't come back here, girl.
Girl, I don't even want to walk in Salinas. I can imagine. That's crazy. Of all the prisons you've touched down in, been in, CJ, which one would you say was the hardest time served? In your opinion. I mean, I know none of them are easy.
I mean, like both Quinn and Salinas Valley were like just completely locked down, more cell living the whole time, you know. Uh, I mean, not hard, but it's like, yeah, like there's no program, I mean, some, like I said, when I went to Susanville, I had a program. And then, yes, San Quentin and Salinas Valley, I had to make my own program, get up and do my burpees and all this other stuff. You
You
know,
were doing burpees?
yeah, a lot of I did like thousands burpees. I'd start off with 500 in the morning and 500 before I
Oh,
went
wow.
to bed at nighttime,
Sure. Yeah.
But it was that, but that was my program in those places because I was just in a cell.
Yeah.
We were either on lockdown because someone got stabbed, or you know they were
Right.
still executing people in San Quentin, so we would go on lockdown every time they wanted to execute somebody. They would
Yeah.
bring us bag lunches to the cell for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was like room service, but if you don't get no movement, the only sunlight you get through a dirty window, it makes for a long time.
Right.
A month goes on forever.
Yeah. Quentin is an old facility, right? So I'm sure.
Yeah, you're 5 tiers inside of a giant building, basically. So
Yeah.
that was the first time I seen a hoot rod, mattresses flying out the window or down the tiers on fire, and They're bringing in the prison inmate firemen to drag people out of there. Yeah, that was. I mean, but at the same time, everybody had respect in there. There was a shutdown time. There was all this, but whenever everybody wanted to get crazy, everybody got crazy.
It was on and cracking, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Visiting there was scary. I felt like I got patted down. Visiting Quentin was, I think, a lot harsher than Salinas Valley. I only went like twice to Quentin, other than when I picked him up when he got out. Yeah, that one. And they don't even let you like park. Then they like bus you in. You have to like park far, so you're like getting bussed in with a bunch of people that are also there visiting. And all I kept thinking was the crap CJ had told me about, like, just like watch yourself. And I'm like, oh, like these people are visiting too, but I don't know where they've been. So it was.
I get it, because a lot of times, even there's groups, families, it'll be like, hey, we have family at the same prison, let's ride up together. Oh, it's like, really don't know people. Taking a chance.
And then we have one of our friends who's been sober a long time, and she always laughs. She goes, "It always trips me out." She goes, "Because you're hella cool." She goes, "But you're a normie." And I'm like, "Thanks." But it's definitely not anything I ever thought I would do. Just even visiting. I grew up, I mean, not sheltered. I didn't grow up with like a happy life, but it definitely nothing I was ever exposed to.
Right.
But
Do you think anything in your life, even being sheltered, anything about your upbringing, do you think it prepared you to be that strength that you are?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, when I say sheltered, I mean like my sister always protected me from kind of like what was going on in our life. But no, like I grew up, I mean, sheltered in the sense that like I was protected from like the drinking and drugs and that kind of stuff. But no, like, yeah, I think I grew up by a single mom who, did her best, which wasn't great. And, she only spoke Spanish. She worked a lot, and she took out her anger and frustrations on us. And I was in foster care for a couple of months with my sister. So really, she and I raised each other. Like, we raised ourselves, and my mom provided a house, a roof over our head. So yeah, like I think that just growing up the way I did, with not definitely not a lot of supervision, and just you got to figure it out and fend for yourself, was definitely the stuff that I went through with CJ. While it was out of the ordinary and not, definitely not what I expected, my life to be, it was, there's also a kindness and a softness that he came with that I also had never experienced. So it was such a contrast. Like, I didn't grow up seeing like a husband and wife, or like a stable couple. I never grew up seeing that kind of love. And so a lot of the reason I stayed is I knew that, like, he was, even though he didn't get his crap together until he was older, I knew that he'd been raised by his grandparents. And just me watching his grandparents, the little time that I had known him, was like, okay, like, that's why there's that softness in his eyes, even with all the prison terms and all that. Like, that's where that softness comes from, because he saw true love for what it was. And he was always respectful of me. He was always, I think that's one of the things that always shocked me the more I studied like his disease and his drug use and his, drug of choice, was people are always like, oh, like he didn't, a lot of the side effects for meth is like the violent rages. It's like always, and that's common. And I always tell people, it's never raised his hand at me. Never, even when he was trying to leave the house to go, like when he was coming down and he was basically trying to leave to go get high again, never raised his hand at me, never hit me. We yelled a lot because you're married an addict, there's a lot of dysfunction there.
Yeah.
But he was never like violent towards me, and I just think that for me that goes to the core of his heart, where that wasn't in his nature, and no drug was going to change what was in his heart.
Yeah, that's definitely a credit to, like you said, his grandparents, his heart, and the love you guys have for each other. I'll tell you what, love is sometimes the strongest drug out there. And I'm glad you guys are here to share it. It's pretty awesome.
He's okay.
A little bit. Yeah. Most people, not to go a big jump from speaking on love, but a lot of people want to hear on these channels war stories, or were you ever incarcerated with someone famous or infamous? Is there anyone, CJ, that you can remember you were incarcerated with that was, maybe well known? Or
I mean, all the dudes on death row at San Quentin, the guy that punched Geraldo Rivera in the nose was supposedly on the yard whenever I was up there in San Quentin. I didn't go out seeking everybody, but yeah, war stories, riots. I've where it was white guys getting with Mexicans and or blacks, because in prison you gotta hang with your own people, But I mean, even with like people like the skinheads and all this other stuff, I they would give me a hard time the last time about having a Mexican wife, and I'm all like, well, she ain't your wife, but I hung out with the Woods, and hey, I'm white, yeah, and if I gotta fight and protect mine, I will, and they always knew that, like a lot of it, but like even when we went into riots, I don't think I was the full main what target as a white person in there from some of these guys,
yeah,
because a lot of the guys would even tell me all the time, black, brown, all this other stuff. They would come up to me on the yard and go, "We like how you program every time," or or in the cells they go, "We like how you program." And I was all like, man, I really, honestly, every time I was there, I was just trying to do my time and get the heck, go home, basically. I didn't always try and get caught up in the politics. And, even after, I mean, as a youngster, whenever I first went in there, it was like, go beat up this child molester or whatever. But half the time, I went to go do it, these guys had already left the yard. So whenever it was coming down to like making a name for myself, I don't know if that was God like being like, so you don't catch no more time, fool. I'm gonna make that dude leave the yard.
I'm gonna do
So
that for you.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I was still in reception down in Delano. That a couple times they're like two different times they came to me and this other guy, and they're all like, youngsters, go handle it. Youngsters, go handle it. And but like I said, both times the guys rolled it up off the yard, and I didn't have to do nothing. And then the other politics later, it was like I was already on my second term, third time being in prison already, and so I'm not a youngster no more. And but these guys want to like go and beat this old white guy up, and I'm all like, why? I mean, this is like another time that I got involved, and I'm just like, why? Dude's here for 7 DUIs. Dude don't know nothing about prison, and you guys want to go beat him up. Just educate him and let it, So, but like I said, by the second time I was in there, I tried to like be a mediator
Mhm.
of what went on more than oh, let's go fight.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like I said, the riots, it was like 13 Southsiders and 9 white guys. We went at it, and we were all locked up in the gym at that time, and it was pretty bad, you know. But afterwards, they drug us all out on the yard, all zip tied, and everybody was just like, "That was fun!" Like, and it was like, but it's like in prison, it's like just to unleash, you know, like sometimes fighting is just to, you know, it was hot back then. We were having like rolling blackouts because it was so hot over here in Salinas, and
Yeah.
so the power would go out, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was just a time to unleash, and
Sure, a lot of pent up aggression. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Just boredom. You know?
boredom.
Yeah.
I yeah, it
Wild.
Where they say idle hands do the devil's work.
Right.
You got nothing to do.
yeah.
That can make you do some crazy things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. So you guys are super into like sports and stuff with your kids now. Right? You have a Bible study and it's like that. That's really, and I know a lot of the viewers are going to find this super cool because a lot of them ride bikes. You have a Harley, right, CJ?
Yeah, I have a Dyna Super Glide, Dyna Lowrider Super Glide, a 2010
Okay.
with
I
a
think that's
96 6-speed.
oh, that's what the homeboy Mitch has too. So when he sees this, he's gonna be stoked to hear that. One of the other YouTubers that, you know, I did my first interview with his wife. You know, he has a Dyna. He did 38 years. And he just got off parole. And they're, you know, they're
That's amazing.
you know, saved and really living a good life now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Inspiring
Yeah.
that you guys, the way you guys stick together, it reminded me, you know, of them in a way.
I couldn't do it without Letty. I'm gonna, you know, I talk to her every night, even if it's to complain about everything, or even the stuff I told you complain about. You know, she listens, and at the same time, I listen to her. At the end of the day, you know, even if it's just a gripe, uh, you know, Letty is my best friend, because you know, whenever I left that lifestyle, I had to leave a lot of people behind, and even today, Letty's like, well, she knows the like, for me now, she knows how it goes. If I don't introduce her, or if I don't say, yeah, this is my wife Letty, Letty knows not to even ask, you know. But if I say, yeah, this is my wife Letty, that's whenever either I don't remember their name, so she helps me out. But if I don't want her to know them, I've got to the point where I don't introduce her, and I try and like get away from
Yeah.
the situation as soon as I can, you know.
It's the past, you know, you leave the
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
But sometimes the past don't want to leave you. And that's where it took me. I mean, we got together when I was 19. So in the beginning, it used to happen a lot more often. And I didn't understand it. I used to get really insecure and upset, you know, because the reality is that I had to trust that, like, he would disappear on me. And so I didn't know where he was going. Like, I had to believe an addict when he said there wasn't somebody else. I had to believe him. I chose to believe him. And by choosing to believe him, I couldn't hold that against him. And so, but it did create a lot of insecurities. And so when, you know, in the beginning, there were a lot of arguments. Like, we would be, you know, walking out Walmart or Target or Costco, anyway, and he would see somebody, and I'd kind of walk up to him, and he'd kind of turn himself as like, and not introduce me. And I was like, and it would really, really, like, it would bother me. It created a lot of insecurities. And finally, at one of the arguments, he's like, if I don't introduce you, it's because they're from my past and they don't need to know you. They don't need to know about you. Like, it's, you know, he's like, it's better if they don't. And I'm
But
like,
didn't she learn that I do that with family sometimes? And she's all,
yeah.
that's your sister. And I go, well, that's for a reason. Like one of my stepsisters. I hope she doesn't watch this.
You're gonna
Maybe
watch
she
this.
won't watch this. I
She
don't know.
will.
Maybe she will. I seen my aunt one time. I go, and I had to go to the bathroom. We were coming back from Antioch, and I'm like running. I pull in the A&W, and my aunt's in there, and I'm all, we gotta go somewhere else. And Letty's all, why? What's wrong? And I'm all, my aunt's in there. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like,
I hear
go to
that.
the bathroom. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Man, I've been in a situation like that a few times.
Yeah, but
And I think
I've
that's
even
just
done that with family, and Letty's all, you're stupid.
like cool. But I think that's just our nature. Like CJ's like, I'm not trying, and I think he avoids confrontation because he's like, if he does have a confrontation, he doesn't. He's like, I don't know if I have that much self control. Like I don't. I want to be respectful, but I want to unleash. So he just doesn't deal with it. And I'm the youngest of 8, and so I don't care. Like I'm not talking to you. Like I could, if I'm not talking to a family member or if I don't have a relationship with a family member, I don't mind walking right in there and they say hi, hey, like we're not doing this. And I'm selfishly like that where I I give too much energy to the people in my life that are there daily and that matter. That if you're not in my life daily, then I don't need to give you that much energy. And CJ's like, I just want to avoid the confrontation altogether. So I'm like, you need to go bathroom.
Yeah, I get both ways, because I do get the part where it's not even a situation for me sometimes that I'm not worried about the person, but I'm worried about how I'm gonna react. I have to remove myself, So I get both ways, yeah.
Well,
Guys,
I get the same way. I know how he'll react. He's not a violent person at all. He's super mellow. The only thing that can set CJ off is someone coming at me. And so there's times where I won't do family gatherings because I know I'll pop off. And I know that like I'll start it and he'll finish it. Like it's not going to go down any other way. You know what I mean? So let me just protect everyone because I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. And I don't want to put him in that position. So we're just not going to do it. And
yeah, I think that's smart. That's smart. That's a good balance to have. Yeah, totally.
someone that pops off and someone that
Right? Definitely. Definitely. I know. That's so cool. You guys can do that and have that balance. Is there anything that you guys like? Do you have any plans to maybe make a channel one day together or have a Bible study you'd like to invite people to or write a book? Anything like that in the work or?
I mean, like this right here, we've done a lot of, for a while at one of the churches. You know what, I can't say we took a step back, but in the past, me and Letty did a marriage counseling class for a while at one of the churches, and kind of ran it, or orchestrated it a little bit, and had people
bring
come
in
and
speakers.
talk.
Yeah.
But we've and like this, we're always willing to talk, to anybody. We've had couples come to our house, and just whatever, just talk. And then we tell them, if you're not going through stuff, in your marriage, then your marriage isn't gonna grow sometimes. But sometimes that's the hard way to grow, but it'll strengthen it. It'll marriage isn't always peaches and cream, it, it's it's hard work. But I think it's sometimes, like I said, if you are bringing up old stuff, or constantly remind them that I forgave you all the time, it does, because it's like, man, screw it. Like, then I'm gonna go do what I'm gonna go do, and you go do what you're gonna go do, and then that is where it falls apart. But at the same time, there does gotta be concern, you know, and Letty will ask me, like, why, why this, why that? And I'm like, even lately I go, or well, in the past year I go fishing a lot, but it was because of the whole COVID thing, and I was working out a lot, and but Letty knows I can't stay in the house all the time. But now it's kind of got into a routine. It's part of like I feel like it's more my exercise. I get out, I walk like 4 miles on the beach, just casting my pole and everything. But she does it, and I know sometimes it frustrates her. So, but now we're at a point. Even the other day, she goes, "You're gonna have to rein it back," and I'm all, "You're right, I do," because we're getting back to life. My kids are back to baseball, and I want my son to get back to baseball, but he's not back yet. But my daughter is, and so but I gotta listen to her concerns sometimes too. She's not real convicting about it. Like, what are you out there tweaking or something every time you go fishing? She's not like that. She's just like, hey, we gotta work together. We're still raising kids. And like I said, I gotta be there.
Right, right. I get it. Like I get what you're saying. It's almost like your how your program is out here on the outside.
Yeah.
I understand what Letty's feeling and saying. You know what I mean? Like I get the aspect of it.
He's so used to programming. Like he's been out and over 15 years, and he's so used to the mentality of like routine. But I think that's just in his nature. I think he's always been like that, and prison just kind of reinforced like his own personality trait where that's just he's good with routine. I think had he not been in so much trouble, he would have been a perfect candidate for the military because he likes routine. He likes being told what to like. He's perfectly fine meeting those expectations. And so right now, and that was the conversation. I'm like, we're getting back into like not real life, but like back into what we were doing. Like our daughter's back in softball, there's practice, and things are changing. And so coming home, talking to me for a little bit, and then going off fishing almost every day, like that's not going to cut it anymore. Because the reality is like now we're back to day, and we're going to have to figure this out. And so, and he does. I mean, he gets that, but I feel bad telling him because like I know that is a huge de-stressor for him. I know that he gets like stressed out at work, and that's his therapy, and I get that, right? And I think for me, I'm not an outdoorsy person at all. So for me, therapy is like I'm cooking in the kitchen with like my show playing on Hulu, and I'm just kind of in my zone. Like no one, even just like doing dishes, like just being around the house doing stuff. And so for him, he's like, well, that's, I need to get out of the house. And I'm like, there's so much to do here. Like I'm a homebody. COVID was perfect for me. Like I was like, great. CJ suffered a little bit, you know what I mean? But we found things that we could do, and now we're, like I said, we're rolling it back. But I think that's one thing that for me and him has always been crucial is, like you said, the being able to call him on stuff, but without being judgmental. Like me and my sister have this like theory and this like idea where like marriages always have good and bad, right? All marriages have good and bad, but each spouse is allowed so many bad days a year because there should always be more good than bad. And so CJ has never exceeded that magic number. You know what I mean? He has his moments, and we have our arguments. Nothing's perfect, but I think one thing that for me was super hard when he first got sober was like his own process of accountability is to be honest. He's like, I lied for so much of my life when I was using that now, like, I don't want to. And unfortunately, that means that, he posts unflattering pictures of me on Facebook. Good, bad, and ugly, it's all out there. And that was really hard for me in the beginning. I mean, this man would give sermons on the bad stuff in our marriage, and I'm sitting there with all the old ladies in the church looking at me like I should be a better wife. And so it was extremely difficult when he was kind of going through that process of like early on in his sobriety where he just felt like nothing had to be private. And I'm like, no, privacy is okay. And so we're finding a balance with that. But he's always been like he just puts it all out there, and I just had to learn that that's his own process of accountability, where I'm not going to hide who I am or the good, bad, and ugly of our marriage, because then I can't keep myself accountable. And
there is things though that through my walk with God that have brought that transparency about even more though in my life.
Okay.
So I find it important to be as transparent as I can because of things that have happened since I turned my life around. I because if I sit there and tell someone all the time that me and Letty are always happy and we never fight and all that, I would be full of crap. So I find it important to always, hey, I'm pissed off at Letty right now. Why? But in our small community group right now, we have, a couple different couples that get together every week, and the men talk with the men sometimes and the wives talk with the wives and or whatever, and but I think it is important because if I told them all the time, oh, me and Letty our 20 years together have always been peachy creams and everything, even today, and it's like, no, I'm mad at Letty right now. I ain't gonna lie. Uh,
I get it. It's like you guys are, to me, it sounds like the perfect mesh of like balance. I hear what both of you are saying, and you guys even taught me some things right now, and it sticks with me. What you said is, you can still be angry about something or remember it, but not to use that during that fight or during that moment. And that's something that I know I need to work on. So thank you for that, Jen. You guys have great advice.
I was like, that was a long year of counseling and therapy and working out our issues with, the counselor. He did. I think that's part of what, there's that work to get to sobriety. And I think that's where he and I were fully conscious of the fact that he's been sober for over 15 years now. And if we're at a party, if we're, whatever, we're now at the point where he'll go to parties, and if other people are drinking, he's fine. But if we're, I used to get really irritated if we're there too long and he's like, I have to be open to hearing him say, like, I'm done. You know what I mean? And in the beginning, it happened a lot. In the beginning, it happened a lot where we would be there, people would be drinking, and he'd be like, we got to, like, I can taste it.
Yeah.
Like, we got to go. And I had to, I'm used to, like, the party ain't even started yet. Like, I come from a Mexican family. When we get to like, it goes on for a while. And so I was like, I'm leaving the party early. but just to be respectful of him, I think he had been, and I don't have an issue with drugs or alcohol. And so we would, go out to dinner. And I think it wasn't until he'd been sober for a little over 10 years that we finally, like, we all went out to dinner, and like some of the women were having a drink, and I was like, they're like, oh, do you want one? And I just kind of looked at him, and he's like, go, like, if you want one, you can have one. So he'd been sober for a while before, like, I drank in front of him, just out of, like, respect for him, because I didn't want, him to feel like, oh, she's drinking, and then, like, I'm gonna kiss him, and I don't know, but I just didn't want to be a stumbling block for him. So
she has a brother that always liked to offer me alcohol all the time, even after I asked him not to. So even some of her family functions were hard to go to for a while.
Yeah.
But he thought it was a running joke to always offer me, or to see how strong-willed I was, or I don't know his thinking behind
Test or
all that.
something. Yeah.
He's also an alcoholic who won't admit it. So,
Yeah.
We don't really.
I get it. I get it. So I just commend you guys for, coming as far as you've come in your life, in your marriage, sharing this with people, I really feel like you have such a calling on your lives. You guys already know that, I'm sure, but you guys have a beautiful story to tell and reality. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's not always peaches and cream, you know?
It was rough.
That's right. But if we communicate, we can get through it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, learning each other's communication.
Yes.
Because
Girl, I know.
I can't even tell you how many arguments we had where we're saying the exact same thing, just with different words. And I'm like, I just said that. No, you said, no, dude, like we're saying the same thing. Like, slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just, and that's what happens. And the thing is, it's rough because I'm hot-headed, and that same aspect of like my personality that he loves is probably the same thing he hates, because I got a mouth. And so I think there have been times in our marriage where he probably, doesn't vet certain things because he knows like I'm a little more eloquent with my words, whereas he'll tend to stay quiet and not say things. And so I have to watch myself a little bit. But
I'm a little hot-headed myself. I hear that. Well, I really, you know what? I hope you guys are open to coming back, and sharing some more another time. It was a blessing. I know people are going to have a lot of questions down in the comment area. So once I put this up, I'm going to put you guys onto it so you can communicate with people. And
All right. Sounds
been a
good.
blessing.
any questions? Over the last 19 years, I've learned to be an open book.
All right. All right. You hear it, guys, right there. Open book.
Yeah.
Hey, I really appreciate you guys so much for this, okay?
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you
Thanks for
having
having us.
I appreciate it, seriously. Really good stuff. And I'll talk to you guys soon, okay?
All right.
It was great seeing you.
All right.
Be good.
Bye.
Be safe. Be safe.
Yes, you too. Bye, guys.
Bye.